Hey there, and welcome to the review of The Inpatient for PSVR on Petrifying Pumpkins, which is the only channel on YouTube where an Irish VR fan will degrade himself for subscriptions and cheap likes. Let's begin. The Inpatient is a PSVR exclusive title created by Supermassive Games, the studio that brought us games like Until Dawn on PS4 and Tumble and Rush of Blood on PSVR. They've also been in production with the highly anticipated Bravo team coming in March. In other words, they're a studio with a proven track record. The Inpatient is a horror title that is heavily narrative driven. It takes place in the mental institution that may be familiar to those who've played Until Dawn. That's because The Inpatient is a prequel to Until Dawn, set 60 years prior to the events of that game. Your character, who can be male or female and be whatever race you want, wakes up in the institution after a classic case of the Bill Cosbys, i.e., he or she can't remember anything. While this is a bit of a tired trope, it does lead you to question the true motivations behind every single character you come across on your short 2 to 3 hour journey, including your own. You'll talk to staff and fellow patients of the institute, and you are often given the ability to respond to their banter with one of two options. The game has some degree of voice recognition, so you can actually speak the line and it should select it. I found this to work about 90% of the time for me, which I was happy with considering my accent. Some may find the small selection of dialogue choices to be disappointing here, however, but the gimmick is novel nonetheless. These choices are partly where the butterfly effect system makes a return from the original Until Dawn. Just like in that game, your actions and choices can determine different outcomes, which in theory ought to make up for that short playtime by adding replayability. But what about the gameplay itself? The Inpatient plays out entirely in first person. I decided to play through the story using the Move controllers, although the DualShock 4 is also an option. I found the Move controllers to be cumbersome at times, often accidentally turning 180 degrees when I only meant to turn slightly right or left, because both functions are mapped to the same button, despite many buttons on the moves being free for such a function. Then you have the slow walking pace, which may not have been so bad if there was an option to run or at least jog. Sadly, there is not. The majority of the game will see you in a loop of conversing with NPCs and wandering around the institution, inspecting items and finding tidbits of clues and collectibles, or triggering the next part of the story to play. There are no puzzles here, no combat to be found. There's a unique encounter later on in the game involving an enemy, and while it is fun and ideal for VR, it seemed underutilized. You may think that gameplay loop sounds similar to Until Dawn, but Until Dawn gave you more variety, more exciting set pieces, and a greater playtime. So those going into this thinking it will be like Until Dawn VR may feel disappointed, myself included. I played through this game once. It took me close to 3 hours overall. I had expected to want to replay it straight away to get the other endings and see how things could be different. Unfortunately, the story of The Inpatient never really gripped me like Until Dawn's did. Some events tie into things you may have discovered in Until Dawn, so it was nice to see those winks and nods. But overall, the story and the characters in that story felt forgettable. Full disclosure, I live-streamed my playthrough and was slightly distracted by all my viewers asking me to commit various acts of necrophilia on the corpses I'd come across. But still, I don't think that impacted things too much. I may return to it one day, but I feel no urge to right now. But things aren't all doom and gloom here. The Inpatient does some things very right in my opinion. First, the visuals are great for a VR title. They aren't a million miles away from Until Dawn's visuals, and they're a step up from Rush of Blood. Next, you have some great audio design. Whispers that feel like they are right at your ear. A piercing scream that'll have you jump on the spot. and general eerie ambience. Also, I'd like to take a moment to praise something that I've seen many people complain about: the player character's arms when using the Move controllers. Yes, they can get stuck in some weird angles and look like noodles at times, but this is the only game I can think of where when your hand hits an object, it doesn't just phase through it. The hand reacts to that object. If you punch a window, for example, the hand will stop at the glass, even if your real life hand extends further. Not only that, but you'll get the appropriate audio to accompany it. Hitting a metal bed frame sounds like hitting a metal bed frame. Again, the sound design in this game is great. So, to sum this review up, The Inpatient is a horror game that isn't particularly scary. It's very pretty, but its story isn't particularly gripping. It sounds good, but the gameplay is pretty one note. It has replayability, but not enough to warrant the €40 price tag that I paid. I think I'd be much happier with this game if I paid maybe €20 instead of 40. The game feels like it has a solid foundation, but I think it needed some more time in the oven. I'm left wondering if developing Rush of Blood, Tumbled VR, Hidden Agenda, The Inpatient, and Bravo Team in the space of just a couple of years is spreading Supermassive Games perhaps a bit too thin. Final score: 6 bananas out of 5 kg of pubic hair. Thanks for watching, like, subscribe, and share this vid.